Good morning, Austin, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. My name is Ray Blevins. David Kent and Audrey are today's guests. And you see the telephone number. It's kind of hard to read. We are live January 3rd. Had something think for a second. January 1999. So welcome to the new year, folks. We're glad you tuned in with us, and we will be taking calls live on the air. Today's subject is going to be Jesus Christ, fact or fiction. Our contention is that Jesus was not a real person, it's basically a myth. And unfortunately, that was supposed to be last week's show, which had been perfect coinciding right around Christmas. There is what our plan was, December 27th. Unfortunately, we had a scheduling faux pas there, and we ended up being today's. Well, it's hard to read with my sweater, isn't it, folks? Sorry about that. Atheist Experience Live, 472-2255. There you go. You can see the we do have a few announcements for the group, Atheist Community of Austin. Once a month, we do our lecture series, and this month, well, every month is at FERS at North Cross Mall, and this particular month, it will be a panel discussion, Raising Atheist Kids. We have several atheist parents out there, and we'd like to discuss what's all involved in raising kids in an atheist family. There's a lot of people out there who feel that you can't raise moral kids without the Bible and church and everything else, and we basically want to show what a fallacy that whole myth there is. So, and on the panel will be several members of Atheist Community of Austin. David Kent will be one of the people on the panel. Jim Halmack, John Coons, Keith Burka, and Don Rhodes, all members of Atheist Community of Austin. They're all parents. I just realized we have no mothers on the group. These are all fathers. Yeah. So hopefully any of you atheist mothers we'd like to invite you out there and get your input in on it too. Another announcement we have coming up here, April 2nd through the 4th, is our Freethought Roundup. All atheists and other free thinkers are invited to Austin, Texas. I just put the two called Atheists in Austin. The two go so well together there, don't they? The National Convention of Atheist Alliance. Speakers will include Dan Barker from Freedom from Religion Foundation, journalist and atheist Arthur James Hott, prolific writer Dr. Arthur F. Idle, and Douglas Kruger, author of What is Atheism? Those who attend last year's convention in St. Louis and enjoyed Ray Romano's Judas will be happy to hear that he will treat us with another dramatic performance. I didn't realize Ray Romano was coming. Isn't that the gentleman from Everyone Loves Raymond?
I think so.
I love the title of the show. I don't know if I'm a big show this fan, but I love that title. But we will remind you several times between now and then. April 2nd is the Atheist Alliance Convention that we are hosting here in Austin, and we're real proud to do that. And like I say, we'll be bringing more to that. The other announcement I'd like to make is we've lost our co-host. Joe Zamecki has moved to New Jersey with American Atheists. That American Atheists have now left Austin officially. They're no longer here in Austin. Right. Their new headquarters is in New Jersey. We're going to miss you, Joe. And even though I'm sure he's not watching today's show, but he did promise us he will call in on as often as he can just to let us know how American Atheists are doing there in New Jersey and any national news that might have significance to us here in Austin. He will definitely keep us informed of that through email and phone calls here live on the show. And so that's funny. I see callers already. We ain't even got to the topic yet. I guess we're ready to get to the topic, and I'll hand the floor over to David Kent and let him introduce today's topic.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to be content heavy here, I'm afraid. But well, the subject is Jesus, fact or fiction. So the first question is, when you were a child, did you ever wonder whether this person called Jesus that you were told about, who raised the dead and did all these miracles, really live or not? And so what we're doing this morning is looking at the historical evidence to see whether there was such a person who ever lived. Most Christians will tell you yes. Most Christian theological seminaries will tell you no, it's not necessary for there to be a historical Jesus or to have a resurrection for people to worship as Christians. And so some Christians will say, yes, we need an historical Jesus, and you see him written about in the Bible. Others will say no. So what I have done, and so that nobody will think that we're slanting or biasing our information here, I'm taking one of the foremost defenders of Christianity and looking at what he presents as historical evidences for the existence of Jesus, and I'm going to rebut each one of those evidences item by item. So,
go ahead and explain. You sell the book there, yeah.
You don't have to be a real historian to follow this, but you do have to pay fairly close attention. The book I'm using here is Evidence That Demands a Verdict. This was compiled by Josh McDowell. It's been used for the last 20 years by Campus Crusade for Christ all over the country, and is the standard reference work for Christians who are defending their faith. And Josh McDowell includes a chapter in this.
Can I say something real quick, David?
Yeah.
I just want to let Mary know, we see you're on the phone there. I got your name and everything else, but I want David Kent to get the introduction first, and then we'll get to the phone call. So please hang on, Mary.
Okay, if she'll wait, I'd be glad to answer every question she has.
Thank you.
Chapter 5 is called Jesus, a Man of History, and so I'm going to quote every one of these items, as I said, that McDowell presents, and I'm going to present them in his own words so that there's going to be no distortion here, and then I'm going to rebut them one by one. There are fewer than a dozen, so it won't be too bad. His first piece of evidence, the earliest piece of evidence for the existence of anybody named Jesus, was a person named Thallus, and that's Thallus, who, writing about the year 52 AD, or we prefer to call it the current era, gives the naturalistic explanation of a non-believer who witnessed the darkness accompanying Christ's crucifixion. That's what McDowell says. The rebuttal to item number 1 is this. Thallus was a Samaritan freedman of the Emperor Tiberius, who wrote a history of Greece and Asia, and who mentions an eclipse of the sun. That's all he does. In 221 CE, which is, 169 years later, a Christian writer named Sextus Julius Africanus notes that Thallus, in the third book of his histories, explains away this darkness as an eclipse of the sun. So what's happened here is that Thallus does not refer to a Jesus, he only refers to an eclipse, which a Christian used to bolster the Christian story. So that's no evidence whatever. His item number 2 is Mara bar Serapion, and this was a Syrian writing from prison to his son, and they haven't been able to date this exactly, but they know that it was later than 73, the year 73. Just how much later, who knows. And he says, what advantage did the Jews gain from executing their wise king? He lived on in the teaching which he had given. And the rebuttal to that item 2 is, this Syrian was not an eyewitness of Jesus. He does not mention a resurrection. He's retelling a story that he's heard. And that's it. In the first 100 years after Jesus Christ supposedly was born, there's no other historical evidence that there was such a person. The verdict on the first century is given by F.F. Bruce, who is the Rylands Professor of Biblical Criticism and Exegesis, staunch defender of Christianity, in the University of Manchester. In his book, The New Testament Documents, Are They Reliable? Published in 1960, page 114, he says, apart from Thallus, no certain reference is made to Christianity in any extent, non-Christian Gentile writing of the first century. Well, that should put an end to it right there, but McDowell doesn't stop there. He goes right on into the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th centuries on down. His third historical evidence is from Joseph ben Matthias, and this man is more commonly known as Flavius Josephus, who, writing in the year 93, says, now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, he was the Christ, and when Pilate condemned him to the cross, he appeared to them alive again the 3rd day. Well, if this was real, this would be a wonderful piece of news and a great source to use. The rebuttal to it is that Josephus never wrote it. Christian defenders as early as Clement of Alexandria, who lived from 150 to 215 of the current era, never cited it. Not once. Origen, who lived from 185 to 254, who dealt extensively with Josephus, he was thoroughly familiar with Josephus's writings, wrote that Josephus did not believe Jesus to be the Messiah, nor proclaim him as such. Now here's a man who knew Josephus inside and out, who says Josephus didn't accept Jesus as the Christ. And
we still have his writings?
Yes. And so that's proof right there that as of about the year 250, Josephus did not include this little business that we've just quoted from McDowell. Where does it first appear then? Where does it come in? Where did they get it? Eusebius, who is commonly called the father of church history, the first historian of the Christian church, writing in the year 324, is the first one to mention this passage, and he quotes it twice. And he is suspected to be the forger, the person who interpolated this passage into Josephus. Christian scholars dismiss this passage from Josephus, so I think we would be safe in doing the same thing. It's obviously a forgery. McDowell goes on to item number 4, and this is from Gaius Plinius Caecilius Secundus, commonly known as Pliny the Younger. He's an early historian who wrote in the year 112, current era, that Christians sang, quotes, a hymn to Christ as to a God. Well, this is derivative. This is not an eyewitness of Jesus. Number 5 is Cornelius Tacitus, the great Roman historian who wrote in the year 120, Nero punished a class of men loathed for their vices, whom the crowd styled Christians. Christus, the founder of the name, had undergone the death penalty in the reign of Tiberius by sentence of the procurator Pontius Pilatus. What's happened here is that Tacitus is repeating the story that Christians had told him and that he'd heard from others non-Christian, not what he had found in the official archives. And this is clear since, 1, the title procurator, which is used in this quotation, was current only from the second half of the 1st century. If Tacitus had got this information from the state archives, Pilate's title would have been given correctly. He was known as prefect. That was the title he used in his lifetime, not procurator. And secondly, Christus, which is the same thing as the Hebrew Messiah, meaning anointed one, would not have appeared as a proper name in the state archives. He would not have said Christus, the founder of the name. He would say Jesus, the founder of that cult, if he was referring to an historical person.
Excellent point.
So now we're down to number 6, if you follow this. McDowell's 6th proof is from Gaius Suetonius Tranquillus, known as Suetonius, who writes, as the Jews were making constant disturbances at the instigation of Chrestus, which is an alternate spelling of Christus, he, referring to the Emperor Claudius, expelled them from Rome. Now he's writing about the year 120. And again, this is derivative. It's useless for evidence that Jesus was an historical person. What we're doing here, and what McDowell's doing, is documenting the existence of a Christian cult. There's no reference to an historical Jesus behind this in any of these sources. His 7th proof is from Lucian, the satirist, writing about the year 175, refers to, quotes, the man who was crucified in Palestine because he introduced this new cult into the world. Well, this is, again, no eyewitness. This is retelling a story that had become popular. McDowell's evidences number 8 and 9 are Tertullian and Justin Martyr. These were both Christian defenders, and they claimed that material relating to Jesus would be found in the archives of Tiberius and Pontius Pilate. The only trouble was, it wasn't. Takes care of that. McDowell's 10th proof is, believe it or not, the Encyclopedia Britannica, which he says, and I quote him, uses 20,000 words in describing this person, Jesus, end quotes. Well, the rebuttal to that should be pretty obvious. The Encyclopedia Britannica also contains articles on Hercules and Odysseus, which hardly makes them historical.
One of the weakest arguments he's got, yes.
Now, so the verdict that he's looking for on the 2nd through the 20th centuries is basically this. There were over 3 dozen pagan and Jewish writers who wrote a great deal in the century during which Jesus was supposed to have lived, who do not mention Jesus or his disciples or his apostles at all. These are writers who lived at the time that Jesus supposedly lived. They left a library of Jewish and pagan literature. They don't mention him, not a line, not a sentence. And I'm not going to bore you with the names of all these people, but they are such people as Plutarch, Philogedeus, Petronius, Juvenal, Pausanias, Diochrysostom, Seneca, Martial, Florus Lucius, Columella, Pliny the Elder, very well-known Roman historians of the time who wrote about every last thing they could find. A lot of them were just chroniclers.
And these are all contemporary people that lived.
These are people who lived in the very first,
within a century,
at the time Jesus supposedly lived, in the century following his birth, if he was born, and would have mentioned something about him.
Yes.
Nothing. They don't mention a word of him. McDowell cites a writer named Otto Betz, who wrote a book called What Do We Know About Jesus in 1968. And on page 9, Mr. Betz says, quotes, "No serious scholar has ventured to postulate the non-historicity of Jesus." Now that is either disingenuous or he's unaware of the work of a number of very well-known scholars who have decided that there's no historical evidence for the existence of Jesus. Now, I mentioned these 2 weeks ago, just by name, Charles Dupuy, David F. Strauss, John M. Robertson, Thomas Whitaker, Arthur Draves, L. Gordon Rylance, John E. Remsburg are the best known. There's no reason for Betz to say that, because these men are listed they have separate listings in the Encyclopedia Britannica, for one thing.
Good point.
They're very well-known scholars. These are not obscure people who are attacking Christianity. They are, Strauss, for example, was a German theologian who was interested in the question of did Jesus live, and he looked into it, did his research, and eventually ended up an atheist, and which pretty well destroyed his career, but he held to his principles. Charles Dupuy wrote a book called The Origin of All Cults, a remarkable scholar. He's the first to claim that there was no such person as Jesus in historical records. Well, so far so good. Nobody has claimed that there was any historical person called Jesus based on Gentile writers or Jewish writers. I showed the draft of this article that I'm reading from here to a friend of mine, and he says, well, you're overlooking one major person, and he's quite true. The foremost Christian philosopher of the 20th century took an interest in this question of whether Jesus was historical or not. He did his research, and he published a book in German that was later translated into English under the title Quest for the Historical Jesus. This was written several years ago, about at least half a century ago. And he made the statement on page 195, there's no historical evidence to show that such a person as Jesus ever lived. And he started the movement which caught on in theological seminaries and created a situation where now in most theological seminaries you will not find the lecturers, teachers, and professors who teach there and train Christian preachers claiming that Jesus was historical. Their line is that it's not necessary for Christianity to thrive to establish any historical person named Jesus. They can do without him. And the name of this scholar is one that everybody of my generation would recognize. Albert Schweitzer said there's no evidence. And he included the Gospels in his analysis. No evidence from any reliable historical source that such a person named Jesus ever lived. These 10 sources that I've just gone through are McDowell's only evidences outside the Gospels for the existence of Jesus as an historical person, except one. He has number 11, and this is his last one. And here, this is something that McDowell should never have mentioned, because he just planted the seeds of his own destruction when he did. And this is the final thing here.
Sure.
This is the key to how the cult of Christianity was put together. And I don't think McDowell knew what he stumbled across here, but he sure made a mistake. he quotes it as from the Jewish Talmud, in which Jesus is referred to as Ben Pandera. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. And here you have to get away from all these guys who are studying early texts, and you have to have some historical knowledge of Rome in the 1st and 2nd centuries. And if you look to the context of these early texts, you'll see something very interesting that a lot of scholars, atheists, and Christians alike overlook. They don't understand the entire culture of the time. And here's where we get into this interesting little item that atheists aren't too well aware of. 2nd century Rome, this is from the year 100 to the year 200 approximately, was the golden age of professional storytelling. Now, they didn't have TVs, and this is how they entertained themselves. Pliny the Younger says that street corner storytellers would announce, "Give me a copper coin and I'll tell you a golden story." Their stories, the common street stories, were of 1st century wonder workers whose fantastic miracles delighted hearers. And 3 of these very common street stories in the Near East were the transformations of Apuleius, commonly known, it's translated into English and commonly known as the Golden Ass. This translation is by Robert Graves. You can get a copy of it. I noticed a couple of them for about $5 or so over down here at Half Price Books. It's an extremely interesting book. Every educated person ought to read it. You probably heard the story in school or when you were a child of Cupid and Psyche. That's from this book. It's one of the most interesting books you'll ever read, called The Golden Ass, or otherwise the Transformations of Apuleius. The second one that was popular in the Near East in the 2nd century was the Life of Apollonius Tyana, and this was written by Flavius Philostratus. And this was about a semi-legendary person who supposedly traveled off into the Far East in India and came back working all kinds of wonders. He was claimed to have taken evil spirits and driven them into the bodies of swine and changed wine into water and such crazy things as that. This was Apollonius. If that sounds a little familiar, there's a reason. And the third one is a book in Hebrew called the Sefer Toldoth Jeshu, or the Book of the Generation of Jesus. And it is this latter book from which the idea and the name of Jesus came. So while you can say there's no such historical person as Jesus, where did the name and the idea of Jesus come from? It came from this book. Now, what's the story behind this book? In the year 178 of the current era, there lived a man, an atheist, whose name was Celsus, C-E-L-S-U-S. And he wrote the very first attack on the Christian cult. The name of his book was Aletheis Logos, which is translated from the Greek as the true word. And in his book, The True Word, Celsus refers to this story that Jesus was born of a countrywoman, and that when she was pregnant, she was turned out of doors by a carpenter to whom she had been betrothed, as having been guilty of adultery, and that she bore a child to a certain Roman soldier named Panthera, who lived at Bethlehem. That Jesus, having served for hire in Egypt, and then coming to the knowledge of certain miraculous powers, returned to his own country, and by means of those powers proclaimed himself to be God. This was another one of these common street stories of wonder-working, semi-mythical persons. The Christians, well, if I can use a common phrase, the Christians went ape when this story began to be spread around. And thanks to zealous Christians, every copy that existed of the true word was destroyed. So how do we know what was in it? The only way we know what Celsus wrote is because about 50 years after Celsus lived, Origen, the same person who was familiar with Josephus but couldn't find that passage in it, this Christian defender Origen decided to attack the true word and Celsus, and in order to attack it, he had to quote from it. And it's from his quotes, from what Origen wrote, that we know what Celsus originally included in his attack on Christianity. The story that Celsus quoted from in the true word was the Sefer Toldoth Jeshu. This was mentioned in the Jewish Talmud, as McDowell points out, and it has survived. That book has survived, so I do know what Celsus was using as its source, and it's a very interesting little book. It's difficult to get a hold of a copy. The Sefer Toldoth Jeshu refers to Jannaeus, the Sadducee king of Judea, who reigned from 106 to 79 BC, and to Simeon ben Shittak, who lived in 90 BC. This is about 100 years before the supposed birth of Jesus. The birth of the fictitious Jesus is placed at the time these men lived, and the rest of the book is filled with wonder-working and miracles, the same sort of things they were saying about Apollonius, the same sort of thing you find in the Gospels where Jesus was raising the dead and resurrecting people, otherwise changing water into wine and giving pigs a hard time. So to sum this up, the creation of Christianity used this, involved this. At the same time, this popular street story of Jesus, the son of Joseph Pandira or Panthera, was spreading in Rome in the 1st century before Christ, so-called, the cult of Mithra, it's M-I-T-H-R-A, was introduced into the Roman Empire and attracted the military and the mercantile classes. And the reason it spread so widely was that if you know your history, you know that when the Roman legions were raised in a certain province, they would be transferred to another part of the empire so they would have a loyalty only to the empire and not to their local region. And so they scattered all over the empire, and the trading classes likewise traveled widely, and they all carried this religion of Mithra with them, so Mithraism was everywhere. This cultural influx of a Persian religion, that is Mithraism, meshed with ancient Hebrew traditions to form what became the cult of Christianity. If that sounds odd, if you doubt that the popular story of the Jewish Jesus was written into the worship of Mithra to become Christianity, what you should do is look at Mithraic worship point by point. And this is where the whole thing falls apart. That's why I wish Joe was here today, because as a former Roman Catholic, he'd be right on this. Historically, just to sum it up in a line or two, Mithra first appears as an Aryan sun god in Sanskrit and Persian literature 1,400 years before Christ. It's an old cult. This cult was introduced into the Roman Empire in the 1st century before Christ. And here's what we know about Mithra. He was born of a virgin in a stable or a cave on the winter solstice, attended by shepherds who brought gifts. This sounds familiar, just keep listening. The Emperor Aurelian declared December 25th to be the official birthday of Mithra in about the year 270. The winter solstice frequently fell on December 25th in the Julian calendar before that, but it was officially December 25th after 270. Mithra was worshipped on Sundays. Mithra was always shown in illustrations of him with a halo or a nimbus around his head. He was said to have taken a last supper with his followers when he returned to his Father in heaven. He was believed not to have died, but to have ascended to heaven, whence it was believed he would return at the end of time to raise the dead in a physical resurrection for a final judgment where he would send the good to heaven and the wicked to hell after the world had been destroyed by a fire. Mithra was said to grant his followers immortal life following baptism, and if this sounds like a lot like Christianity, it should. Followers of Mithra, they followed a leader called a Papa, or a Pope, who ruled from the Vatican Hill in Rome. Followers of Mithra celebrated the atoning death of a Savior who was resurrected on a Sunday. Followers of Mithra celebrated sacramenta is the Latin word. It's a consecrated meal of bread and wine. In the Persian Mithraic form, it's called a miazda. This is what the Roman Catholic term missa, the Latin word missa, comes from, miazda, which the English word mass comes from. The Roman Catholic mass came straight from the miazda. Using chanting, bells, candles, incense, and holy water in remembrance of the Last Supper of Mithra. This should sound a whole lot like early Christianity, because it is early Christianity. The Emperor Constantine was a follower of Mithra until he declared December 25th to be the official birthday of Jesus in the year 313, which for the last 40, 50 years had been known as the official birthday of Mithra. And he adopted the cult of Christianity as the state religion. So what happened is you have the Emperor Constantine continuing to worship the very same religion that he had been worshiping exactly as he had done before, just changing the name of the head fellow from Mithra to Jesus. And I don't think we need to go into that stuff. I do want to...
quickly, we've had callers waiting all this time.
Yeah, okay, I know we're going to get callers on this. Jesus acquired a biography. Where did the Gospels come from? In the so-called Gospels, just like, we're Americans, just as if Paul Bunyan were the subject, and if 4 Americans separately, different parts of the country, tried to write down everything they had heard of the history of Paul Bunyan and the wonderful things that he had done. If I wrote a story of Paul Bunyan, if Ray wrote a story of Paul Bunyan, if Audrey wrote a story of Paul Bunyan, trying to recall everything they'd ever heard about him, certain things we'd all write about, Babe the Blue Ox, and various other things, wonders that Paul Bunyan did. Well, there would be some discrepancies because our background is all different.
Exactly.
But we'd have the basic story straight. If four of us sat together to try to set the story down and we were separate from each other, we would basically consolidate that aspect of American culture, and that's exactly what happened with the street stories of Jesus and the cult of Mithra. And the final verdict that Mr. McDowell wants is this: there is no historical evidence whatever that the Jesus of Christianity was an historical person. Now I'm going to bow out here, but I will have one little story that I want to read first. And this happened about 3 weeks ago. My daughter and I went down to B. Dalton Books, Highland Mall. She was shopping for a cookbook, and I decided, well, I'm going to browse over here in the biography section, and I found a brand new autobiography by a woman I have admired personally for years, who is Cher, of Sonny and Cher. She has just written her autobiography, a thing called The First Time. Well, I was skimming through this thing, and on page 126, I found a pretty delicious story. And I want to read this, about a paragraph long. She says, when Sonny and I were invited to see Pope Paul VI at his summer palace outside of Rome, I had to go out and buy a dress for the occasion. She, at the time, was wearing bell-bottoms, and she didn't think it was appropriate to be wearing bell-bottoms in the presence of His Holiness the Pope, or the Holy Father. So she went out and got herself a conservative dress, and she says, it looked like a cross between a nun's habit and my old Catholic uniform. The Pope was carried in on a big throne. They dropped him on the floor, and he spoke to everyone in Italian, and it sounded so moving that I started to get teary. He then started speaking in English, and I didn't like what he had to say, because he was telling these poor little old women with holes in their stockings that they must live for the church and give their money to the church. I thought, bull. Now I'm cleaning this up.
I see that, yes. Go ahead.
I thought, bull. The church should be living for them and giving its money to them. I said to Sonny, I'm out of here.
That's funny.
It's kind of interesting because I think that's the point at which Cher joins us as atheists, or at least had her eyes open as far as what organized Christianity was. Basically, it was founded on the principle of greed and nothing else. And so there is Cher, the disbelieving Cher. She's a sensible woman.
She's an intelligent woman, yes.
You'd never find her skiing into the side of a tree.
Okay, let's try some colors here.
Yeah.
Okay, hang in there, David.
Sure.
Mary?
Hello.
Good morning, Mary.
Well, that was very, very interesting. I didn't get bored at all. Thank you, Mr. Kent.
No, thanks.
There you go. There you go.
Well, Mr. Blevins, you were talking earlier about atheist mothers.
Yes, we'd love to have some atheist mothers come down to the panel discussion we're having at FERS at North Cross Mall.
Gosh, that'd be lovely. I'd do it, but I can't get around because I don't have a car.
Oh,
I'm
still looking forward to the day we meet you, Mary.
Well, I know, me too, and it's going to happen someday, but not just real soon. I'm having some problems with this transportation thing. And now it's winter and cold, and that sucks too. But, think about the people in the Midwest. They're really suffering right now.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, atheist mothers, back to that.
Sure.
The reason you won't meet very many atheist mothers is because when you have children, you're real vulnerable to the system, and it messes with your mind to where you're afraid to offend it, and you want to do it by the rules so that your children will have what they need. And, people don't want to rock the boat.
Exactly.
And you have to be really brave to break the mold in your life, which I've done, but it took a few years to get my courage up to do it. Now I say the hell with it. They're not my friends, so I'm alone with it anyway, so why should I do what they want me to do?
So you mind if I ask?
Because I'm an anarchist, basically, okay?
Oh, great. Okay.
Well,
you mind if I ask how many kids you have?
3.
And how have they turned out?
Pretty good, actually.
None are in prison or killing anybody or anything like that?
One of them graduated from college.
Excellent.
Right? I did something right. She's gorgeous, too.
She's single?
Yeah, but she's very much in love.
Oh.
Right? She's like big time in love with somebody, and I'm glad to see it because she's been through a lot of guys. I mean, gorgeous women do. They get a lot of opportunities with guys.
Sure.
But I just wanted to say that about why it's so difficult to meet women that are atheists, especially mothers.
Right.
Okay? Another thing, I'm sorry to see Mr. Zamecki's gone.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we're going to miss him.
I think
Yeah,
he'll be
me
back.
too. He was a real good part of the show. Another thing I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about a lot of stuff because I haven't seen or talked to y'all in a while.
That's true.
That's Audrey with the poetry, right?
Yes, and she has another poem for today.
Cool. Your poetry's unforgettable. I mean, not memorizable at all, but I remember you got good poetry. But anyway, back to the other subject.
Sure.
Your show last week, it was James Randi was on, and believe it or not, I like James Randi.
Right.
And I'm real interested in what he's got to say. But it kind of blipped out for about 20 straight minutes to where I just lost interest in watching snow on the screen.
Sorry about
hoping it would
that.
come back.
We had technical difficulties. We were
Yeah,
here all
I know.
prepared to go live, and there was
If you ever do that again and you're off like that, run it again, but make sure there's no technical problems like that, because he's a really interesting, intelligent person.
He is. He's very...
You know, and I'm always interested in what sensible people like that have to say.
Yeah.
Another thing,
Sure.
one more thing,
All right.
and it goes to Christianity. Okay, I'm a pretty independent person, and it's been real hard getting that way, but I'm here, and I'm glad. The only problem is that I've spent a lot of vulnerable years, and they've been real isolating and alienating from society, because society's so weird, okay? All I can do is try to catch a buzz and forget about it.
There you go.
That's what I can deal with it. But anyway, the Christians, they go after people like me, and we're real vulnerable because sometimes they're the only kind of people, they're the only people that give you a pseudo sense of community.
Unfortunately,
and I'll tell you what,
that's what we're trying to accomplish here within the atheist community of Austin, to let you know that there are a social group that you can actually be proud to associate with. I'm very proud to associate with every member of the group.
Yeah, well, y'all are a really good, sensible, intelligent group.
I'm very proud of the group.
Well, I'm glad you're here because, as I said, sometimes they're the only people that will offer you a sense of community of any kind, and sometimes you've been so long without it that you get desperate for it,
Yes.
and it can make you make mistakes. And so, you know, what you need to do is stay there and keep it on track for yourselves at least, so that others of us can see that somebody's keeping it on track.
Well, thank you.
Well, that's all I've got to offer.
Well, you have a great year, Mary,
You too.
and we hope to meet you.
Happy 1999.
Happy
Bye.
1999 to you. All right, let's go on down to Ryan.
Yeah, Bush signs that bill to Ashcroft, Illinois.
Ryan?
Just a minute. Hello, how are you? Got a
Excellent.
question for David Kent.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
I wondered how familiar you were with the writings of John Allegro.
Very much. John M. Allegro, yeah.
Yes, John Allegro came to Austin about a dozen years ago
Yes.
and did a series of TV programs with Madeline O'Hare.
Right, the American Atheist Convention had him as a speaker.
That's right. And his contention was twofold. One was that, first of all, his research into the Dead Sea Scrolls pretty much established that the Christian religion was not based on historical fact.
That's right.
And second, that the Christian apologists in England who had custody of the Dead Sea Scrolls were deliberately suppressing this information for two reasons. One is that it provided lifetime employment to all those college professors,
Yes.
and the other was that something that was so devastating to the Christian religion was probably better not released to the public.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, he has died in the meantime,
right,
but I think he was prepared to go fairly public with this information about how the Dead Sea Scrolls project had been milked for decades.
Well, he was on I think he was on the first team
He was.
of scholars who were given the Dead Sea Scrolls to piece together and translate.
And when the translation was complete, nobody wanted to release it except him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, these things are decided by committees, not by individuals. They're not based on principle. They're based on expediency.
Well, I hope you'll be interested to come out to the national or the American. What am I saying? The
Atheist Alliance.
Atheist Alliance
you go.
convention here in April, because we're going to have as one of our speakers Dr. Arthur Ide, who is subsequently on the team of scholars translating the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Well, that sounds very interesting.
And he's very much with us.
I noticed you had a book by Mr. Graves earlier.
Yes, Robert Graves.
Robert Graves. Is that the same one who did the several messiahs and looked at the 27 divine books?
Oh, no.
Okay, that's Kersey Graves, I guess.
Yeah, Kersey Graves wrote the 16 Crucified Saviors.
Okay.
Right. Robert Graves is the English poet. Wrote The White Goddess, several historical works, King Jesus, I, Claudius.
Okay.
The British scholar, a different person.
Okay. I had them confused for a moment.
Yeah.
But, no, you're on the right track that there is no historical evidence for Jesus, and in fact it was shortly after Allegro began to speak about the lack of historicity of Jesus and what he had found as a result of researching the Dead Sea Scrolls, that the seminary teachings that you talked about earlier began to change, and suddenly it was not very important to have a historical Jesus.
Yeah, it's
There was
interesting
the
the way
Jesus of faith.
they shied away from that.
But there's
And,
still plenty of religious speakers here, even right here on the Access channel, that'll get on there and say week after week after week that if Jesus Christ did not raise from the dead, then we're all, the whole Christianity is going to fall apart. And
Well,
we can show historical evidence that there was no Jesus Christ, but yet they'll continue to say that this guy actually lived and he rose from the dead and everything else.
Well, they're right in the sense that if people were to really examine the evidence carefully, and if people were to make a rational assessment of the facts as they're presented, Christianity would fall apart.
Excellent point.
But that is not how Christianity is propagated. The traditional way of propagating a religion is to indoctrinate young people before they're at an age where they can rationally sort things out for themselves, and then to take them off to church every week or take them off to something every week, so
Basically
that they can have
brainwash
this
them.
drilled into their head, and they're totally brainwashed by the time they reach puberty.
Good point.
And that's how religions propagate themselves. Now, the Catholic Church, and frankly many other big churches around the world, have also historically been in their ascendancy when societies have been in decline. That is, when people are economically impoverished, when people are otherwise impoverished. And the Catholic Church reached its zenith at a time of total ignorance in Europe, total poverty, and to almost total enslavement to tyrannical governments. And I think that, historically, this has been what benefits religion, that religion makes this all palatable, and this is why governments allow religions to exist in various countries. So what you see is, I think in this country, some eerie parallels to the fall of the Roman Empire and the rise of Christianity, which I think are two events that are not necessarily separable. I think the two not only coincided with each other, but I think that one caused the other. And I think that there is, some circumstantial evidence that that's happening in this country. We have the decline and fall of our education system. We have people unable to reason. We have,
and to continue on with the fall of the education system, the religious groups are picking them up.
Well, in fact, what you're finding is that the recent products of the education system are far more likely to fall for New Age religions, Christianity, and various other religious teachings than people were 20 or 30 years ago. And it's because 20 or 30 years ago we were so worried about the communists and the Soviets taking over the world that we pushed science education and rational and critical thinking. And once it became obvious to the powers that be in this country that the communists were not going to take us over, the education system was allowed to decline and fall apart. And those critical thinking skills and scientific thinking are not encouraged anymore. In fact, they're actively discouraged. Now it's self-esteem and, kind of fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely wanted to remind everybody about our panel discussion at FERS at North Cross Mall. We'd love to invite you down here too, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Once we get done here, we take down all the equipment and everything else. We head over to FERS. The restaurant itself opens up at 11 o'clock, and they have what they call the Longhorn Room. I think it's the name of the room.
Right.
And it's in the back there. And it's very generous of them. They let us have it on a monthly basis. Well, they let any nonprofit group, I guess ACLU and several other people use that room too. But we get it the first Sunday of every month. We do appreciate FERS doing that for us. And like I said, we'd like to invite Austin and anyone else that's interested in meeting atheists and joining our panel discussion to come on down.
Thank you very much.
All right. And I appreciate your input. You brought in some excellent input on today's topic, which is January 3rd, and the topic is Jesus Christ, Fact or Fiction.
And
well, keep up the good research.
Children, you know.
And
thanks. The
go ahead.
How to educate children
Yes.
and brainwashing children. What does an atheist do in this society to make sure his child isn't, surrounded and
Excellent point.
used up by religion?
Well, you have a great day, Ryan. All right. At this point, though, we'd like to take a little break here, and we'd like to showcase talents from our group. And Audrey is our poet in the group here, and she, you heard Mary mention that Audrey's read poetry on the show before, and she brought a poem she'd like to read for today. So, say again. And
yes.
and she also brought some artwork that we'd like to put on the screen too. If Vic will get that, there we go. That's her artwork.
Perfect.
You can shut off the Atheist Experience so you can actually see all the artwork there. Thank you, Vic. And Audrey?
Ahem. Encased like the dead in your delusion, the puppet master won't hear your pleas. Suffocated in your illusion, they only see what they want to see. Truth we can put on the back burner, as the lies give false security, and if I seem lost and tormented, it's because I see the truth. Kiss away the aches and pains with your poisoned dogma and false liturgy. I'd rather live in knowing pain than allow your madness to blindfold me. Smothering falsehood, I'd rather die than give up myself and conform to the lie.
Excellent. Thank you. Like I said, we like to showcase different members of the group and different talents. And we had several. That's her artwork there. We've had several pieces of artwork from Arlo Pinati, our sound guy, and we'll be having more of his artwork next week's show. So if there's any members of the group that would like to showcase their talent or artwork or anything else like that, just contact Ray or Don or David or any of us here on the TV committee, and we'll be glad to get you on there. Go ahead. Sure.
I do want to mention before I get off this, anybody who would like a copy of these sources and the kind of the treatment I've given about Mithraism or the history of Christianity, this question of the historicity of Jesus, be glad to send them copies of what I just presented here if they want to write us at the send us an email or write to the P.O. Box.
Yeah, and our voicemail, there's our voicemail, 371-2911 is our voicemail. That's our website, atheistcommunity.org. We're a nonprofit organization. I was going to bring up this news article that
Moses,
yes.
is he real?
With the movie Prince of Egypt coming out.
Sorry, you've never heard that song?
What was it? I'm sorry.
It was someone singing in the rain. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Sorry. With Prince of Egypt hitting theaters, it unveiled a Moses only Hollywood envision, a rambunctious teenager. Basically, that goes into say we actually have no history about his teenage life, just like we have no history of Jesus as a teenager. And people are more than willing to fill in the blanks with whatever history or rumors or whatever else that they might bring up. It goes on to say, accompanied by his brother, and they put that in quotation marks because
there's no evidence whatsoever.
Ramses II, that his brother was Ramses II. The prophet-to-be goes on hot riding around Egypt and construction sites in his chariot. He drops water balloons on the heads of temple priests and other statements like, "Hey, Ramses, how do you like your face carved on a wall?" Call it far-fetched commercialism, but the film's creator, DreamWorks SKG, consulted more than 600 religious leaders. Truth be told, no person holds all the details to Moses' life. For years, archaeologists, I do know how to talk, and conservative theologians, thank you, have been debating the very existence of Moses. There is a complex discussion that involves history, psychology, religion, carbon dating, and human speculation and religious faith. I think it goes on to more faith than actually science. Again, we can go on to show that these are stories and myths that have been cannibalized from other religions that came hundreds and thousands of years before Christianity came along. and they just used their stories to propagate their own thoughts and beliefs, whatever else. There's a lot of stories to convince me that the story of Jesus was contrived to meet the so-called prophecies of the Old Testament. So what they would do is they take these prophecies and then incorporate them into their stories to make it sound like this was the one true Messiah because he fulfilled certain events or whatever else. And we get that argument a lot from callers here. What about the so-called thousands and thousands of prophecies that have came true in the Bible? Well, our contention is Jesus was never a real person, so how can you say these prophecies were filled by a myth? That just goes...
Well, if you write your own book, you can tell your own story.
Yeah, if you make up the story, he can fulfill any requirements or any prophecies that you'd want. So we'd like to remind Austin, this is January 3rd. That is our telephone number there. We are taking your calls live on the air. The subject is Jesus Christ, fact or fiction, Jesus crack.
Hey guys, can I cut in here for a second?
You sure can. This is Jeff D, a member of our group, Jeff D. Go ahead, Jeff.
There was just something I wanted to mention. You were talking earlier about Schweitzer and the whole liberal Christianity movement dispensing with the necessity of historical evidence for Jesus.
Yes.
My mother is a Methodist minister, and she's a big fan of Schweitzer and well aware of this movement and aware that there isn't a scrap of evidence. And when I talked to her about this, having visited her church in a small Hispanic community in Chicago, and asked her why she doesn't tell people in her church that there is not a scrap of evidence backing up the historicity of Jesus, she says, "Oh well, these are poor people and they need something to believe in, and so I can't confront them with that, or they wouldn't come to my church." Well, it seems to me that if you want to, the best way to improve people's lives is to level with them and not perpetuate a lie.
Excellent point.
Well, the only reason that Albert Schweitzer wasn't run completely out of town, well, I guess he was. He ended up over in Africa. But the only reason he wasn't run completely out of the Christian community of dialogue was that a couple of pages after he said there's no evidence for the historical existence of Jesus, he made the statement, but I see spiritual evidences for Jesus. So he's admitting historically there's no basis for it, but spiritually he says, I'm still with you guys.
So that excellent point, Jeff. Thanks for your contribution there. I see some more callers coming in. Just want to remind everybody this is January 3rd. We are taking your calls live on the air. We would like to hear from people that actually believe that Jesus was a real person and would be willing to offer any substantiating facts to that. But I'd like to point out a lot of times we get from the callers, what's the big deal? What religion's not hurting anyone? Well, this morning's news gives an excellent point to this, that bin Laden has declared a holy war on the United States.
Has he?
Yes. They had an interview with him in the whole 9 yards. His contention is we're sadistic here and we're the evil people of the world, and he has declared a holy war on us. And the Christians are quite willing to fight back. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show that 99% of the armed conflicts that we have going on at this present time are all religious in nature. If we could educate the world and everyone out there the fallacy of religion and what it was just in man's infancy to answer questions that he could not answer, just imagine how much peaceful the world would be.
This is a small example, but this morning there was a radio news item about the Pope coming to St. Louis this month. Store owners, heads of companies in St. Louis are all in arms, up in a rage, because they want to know if the Pope's route when he comes into St. Louis is going to cause their stores to be closed down, and their streets to be shut. And there's a whole lot of turmoil because these people are afraid they're going to lose tons and tons of business because the Pope's going to block access to their businesses, and the Pope's spokespeople refuse to say what his route is, and they will not disclose it till the last
For
minute.
security reasons.
Because, of course, they don't want to see their beloved Pope blown to smithereens. This is another problem of religion.
Exactly.
I mean, if he were not valued to the position he's in now, nobody would...
But that's funny, all the people that were concerned about losing business, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of Christian huskers out there
if you
selling their religious trinkets there and getting thousands and thousands of tax-free dollars out there on this Pope's visit.
soap on a rope there.
Yes. Would you like to add anything? I appreciate your being here this morning. And
Hint, hint.
Yeah, no, I want you to feel part of the show.
I will when I think of something.
Okay. I didn't want you to think we were ignoring you. Just stand there and look pretty. Sit there and look pretty.
Well, all the guys who called us in and said, you ought to get some women on this program.
Yes, there you go. But that bin Laden is, I guess they did a Time interview with him, and he has actually insinuated that his instigation is responsible for the embassy bombings.
Well, he's got a lot of money backing him, too.
Yes.
He's in a position to do a lot of damage.
Yes, that is scary that someone that hates the United States as much as he does has the money and the power that he actually does. It'd be amazing, and we saw what money can do to our election system. It'd be pretty wild if he tried to influence our election system with his money, as the Chinese tried to do last election. But
well, we ought to get the Chinese to influence
yes,
it, huh?
there you go. Do you see the lights going there? And I do appreciate Misty doing a great job there on call screening. And I see we have Kellen. Hey, good morning, Kellen.
Hello?
Kellen, yes. Can you hear me? Kellen?
Hello?
Hello? You hear me? Am I talking to your dog? Is this... Hello?
Hello?
I don't think she can hear us.
I hear a dog. Are you trying to make a joke, or are you actually calling?
No. Can you hear me?
Oh, it is Kellen. Okay, I can hear you, Kellen.
Okay, great. David was talking about the historicity of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Kellen. I thought you was a joke at first.
It's okay.
I kept hearing this dog, but I couldn't hear it.
I can't hear anything in the phone. I can't hear anything coming back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. David was talking about the historicity of Jesus Christ.
Correct.
Could he talk to the subject of the historicity of God?
The historicity of God.
Yeah, Yahweh and his wife, and
Excellent point. I don't know if David's prepared for that. He did quite extensive preparation for the Jesus Christ part.
Are y'all making fun of my dog? Hey, she's an atheist. I just wondered if he could talk to that.
Okay.
And you brought up a couple excellent points. Would you like to bring up some other points there to maybe get him primed here?
Well, no,
Okay.
Of course, I'd rather leave that to Dr. Ide, who's going to be here in April. He's the man who's really studied that story. Well, he wrote the story of the book Jehovah's Wife, which is an interesting book to read. Yeah, I would say the historicity of God. I would say I'm all for it. Sure, God exists. As a matter of fact, 400 gods exist.
There you go.
More than that,
thousands
come
of gods
on.
that exist all over the world. And my personal favorite is Madeline's comment one time to a caller on a program where she was asked this question, and she said, "Well, do you believe that Quetzalcoatl existed?" She says, "We can document that."
David, look at the
Okay.
with the light on.
Right. The people, there it is. Okay, here I am. Quetzalcoatl obviously existed. He had a whole cult, and people worshipped him for quite a long time. And she mentioned several other gods from around the world. And she said, "Do you believe in this God, that God, and the other God?" The person said, No, of course not. There's only one true God. Madeline said, "Well, these gods all existed historically. They all had followers. They all had worshippers. And if you... I want to point out that you, caller, are just as much an atheist as I am, because you disbelieve all of these gods, just like I do, except that I disbelieve in one more God than you disbelieve in, mainly Jehovah. And she was pointing out that there's about as much point to believing 400 as there is to believing one. The atheist position is simply that we're still waiting for any good evidence that there is a God in existence who is at all concerned with human beings and created the world. And so far, as scientists progress in their researches, we're just not finding evidence. We're not seeing the necessity for positing the existence of any kind of supernatural being. We can find more and more about how the universe, how the world, how natural processes work in the world, but there's no necessity for believing in a God any more than there's a necessity for believing that Mickey Mouse lives on Mars. You could believe it if you want to.
But Mickey Mouse does live on Mars.
Oh my God, does he really? Mm. Where did you see that?
I saw him. He called me last night.
Oh, you prayed about it and got a burning testament on it. Oh.
Yeah, which brings up another question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I know when I'm talking to Christians, they always say, but I personally have experienced God myself.
Mm-hmm.
How would you answer that? And I'm going to hang up now so I can hear the answer.
Kellen, now you know how...
Thanks for calling, Kellen.
Okay, bye.
I have a private answer to that, and I have a public answer to that. The private answer I can't say on the air. It's quite as easy to brainwash yourself as it is for other people to brainwash you. And I would say any burning witness you have to any spiritual phenomenon is probably self-induced. If you think about something and you want to believe it hard enough, you know, your brain is a powerful thing. You can persuade yourself that it actually does exist. It's a matter of beating yourself over the head mentally until you are in a position to accept this. And this goes back to Ryan, who was calling us a few minutes ago about the problem of children in a religious household. How does the child possibly survive this brainwashing? How evil that is for parents to brainwash their children in that way, to persuade them that things exist that that they have no evidence to say do exist.
I got through it.
Yeah, well, you got through it, I got through it, Ray got through it. Yeah. And I respect anybody who's come to the position where they say, I'm an atheist.
Both my parents were rampaging Christians, and until the age of 13, I actually believed it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Well, you know that John Murray, who was the president of American Atheists, back in 1991, addressed the Michigan State Convention of his group, and he made a very interesting point. He said, the one reason that I am, the most atheists give for opposing school prayer is that it isolates non-believers and they have to go out of the room and they have to pretend that they're religious or just shut up while the religious do their thing in schools. He said, yes, those are valid reasons, but they're all ancillary reasons. The main reason is this, I think, as far as I'm concerned, and that is that religion is a means to persuade children to accept direction from outside themselves. It persuades them to rely less and less on their own judgment and their own life experience and to depend on some supernatural being. If you think
persuades them to be good.
Yeah,
you're not good, the devil's going to get you.
If God watches you all the time, you will be punished. There's no way away from it. And you have to repent. You have to jump all the little hoops that your God sets up to regain the status of...
You have to, starve yourself, freeze yourself.
Acceptability, yeah. And otherwise you'll go straight to hell. Well, this dependence on another person's judgment rather than your own judgment is a deadly thing, I think, for children.
Exactly.
The thing that atheists, to get onto our subject at first, is going to be, the thing you want to do with your children is to do everything you can to let those children... give those children confidence enough to depend on their own judgment, make decisions for themselves, be responsible for their actions and so on, and learn to trust their own judgment and the power of their own rational mind, and not to try to bully them into thinking there's some big thing elsewhere that's monitoring them and is going to judge them and control them.
Or as opposed to trusting too much in God. Like, some guy comes up in a beat-up station wagons, hey kid, get in the car. It'd be all well, God's going to protect me, so I'll just go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good point.
or you go a little further and people say, well, he's evil, he's performing abortion, so you better go and kill him.
Oh, yeah.
That's at the
Actually-
direction of God.
Yeah, it's God. Yes.
Actually, not too long ago in Austin, there was a man going around who was supposedly de-demonizing children. They found out he was molesting them. And,
That's Arlo Pignati, our sound guy. Thank you, Arlo. Okay, I see the phones are all backed up here.
God,
so,
somebody said something here.
yeah, so we pissed somebody off here or something. Let's see. Joe? Good morning, Joe.
Hello.
I guess the phones are, you have to listen to us on the TV, I guess. I'm sorry, can you hear me? Normally we tell you to turn your
Hello?
TV down. This morning we're telling you to listen to us on your TV. I'm sorry. Joe?
Hello.
Joe, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Turn your TV up, please. I'm telling you,
Turn
you
my
can't hear
TV
me. Tell him to,
Turn my TV up?
please.
Okay, that's up
I'm
now.
sorry, that's not our normal procedure. We don't have the technical switches set properly, so sorry about that.
Okay.
Please
It's
bear with
usually when you call into one of these programs, they make you turn the TV off.
Yeah, and I appreciate your concern there. So, and your point, sir?
Okay, my point is that 95% of the people on the planet believe in some form of an afterlife. There's 880 million Indians who believe in the Hindu philosophy. There's 1 billion Buddhists. There's the Catholics are the largest Christian denomination in the world. Jews. Are you claiming that 95% of the world is deluding themselves somehow, or
Correct.
how do you respond?
They're uneducated at this point. They have not seen all the facts properly presented.
I think those people,
I'm sorry. Audrey's going to say something too, but go ahead, either one of you.
Well, the Hindu population, those large populations who believe in reincarnation or some other form of life are living in absolute squalor, horrible physical surroundings. And if they didn't have some kind of belief like that, I think they're hoping that there must be something better than their present life, or they'd all go off and commit suicide.
And Audrey, your point?
It's really hardcore knowledge to know that basically you're alone, there's nobody watching over you or whatever. People need to believe in somebody taking care of them or taking care of their spirit. They're afraid of winking out of existence.
Okay, caller, go ahead.
Again, also, well, even if you deny, I'm getting a feedback here.
Well, maybe
Even if you
we're playing.
deny,
I guess we're playing with the phones as we speak. Sorry about that. Please hang with us.
no problem. Even if you deny, they live in wretched conditions and that's why they believe. How do the average American still believes in God as well? And you have, and we live in the most prosperous country in the entire world. What would we possibly have to
Well, like I said,
Well, that's a good question. You'd have to take it case by case, but I think most people are taught basically in the public school system to conform to a certain extent. If you want to get along, don't rock the boat too much. And a lot of people are nominally Christian. My in-laws are very much that way. They don't want to be castaways in their own society in the small town in which they live. So they go to a very liberal Christian church every Sunday, even though they don't believe a word that is said. They have a minister, for example, I know, who's had several affairs, and it's public knowledge, and they don't care. They'd keep going to that church no matter what.
Are you familiar with the Newsweek and the U.S. News and World Report article that they had out not too long ago, and it was dealing with purely scientific?
the one we brought on the show.
Yeah,
that was one scientist willing himself to believe.
Yeah,
He didn't. He never.
The gist of it was not so much that is that he personally. I didn't get that he. First of all, I think he was a Christian, obviously.
We had that news article. We brought it on the show. We discussed it on the show. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
I also think that the biggest gist of the article is that why does life choose to exist instead of nothing? I mean, why does the material world choose to exist at all? Why is the universe pro-life?
Does it choose?
I believe so.
Just because you think that question is a valid question doesn't mean that it's a valid question. There doesn't have to be a reason why. my own personal view is this matter has been here for eternity, will be here for eternity, and we're just lucky enough to come through this particular spot in time with the consciousness to be able to ask that particular question. Just because you can ask that question doesn't mean it's a valid question. Go ahead. I had another point I was going to make, but go ahead, Arlo.
I just think it's just as silly, far more silly, for gods and spirits and Jesuses to pop out of nothing as much as matter.
Right. You and I appreciate your point, Arlo. The point I was going to make earlier before you brought that up was you was wondering about why the religious force is such a big force. It's a money-making force. We have all our taxes set up towards a tax-free. So our government, by giving the tax-free exempt, is basically supporting that whole entity out there, that whole religious entity, and it's such a money-making driving force that as long as they own that much capital, from what I understand, the Catholic Church is one of the richest entities here on earth, and as long as they control that much land, that much power, that much people, it's going to be of influence in our government and for years to come.
Yeah, but when you look at it, okay, it's easy to vilify organized religion because of the money, but I mean, you can't deny all the good that's being done.
I can also point about all the evil. We were just talking about bin Laden and the Muslims.
I'm not Muslim. I can only speak for Catholics. But I mean, my question is that okay, there is some cases where religion is hurting your fellow man, obviously, and fundamentalist beliefs. And, in the Middle East, are a prime example. Also, fundamentalist Protestant beliefs here that are encouraging people to go out and kill abortion doctors. I mean, I'm obviously against abortion, but I'm against murdering anyone. But you can't deny the fact that Christians on an average, their heart's in the right place and they're trying to help people.
No.
I don't see atheists
because they feel like they have
really
to.
anyone.
I feel on a whole, and I hate stereotyping people or whatever, but I think they're such a closed-minded, narrow-minded, bigoted group of people that no, I feel whatever little bit of good that you can point out is so far outweighed by the thousands of years of persecution and degradation and everything else that they've done, that to point out a few good events that they've done in the last 5 years does nothing to cancel out the thousands.
In most cases, it was religious people that were persecuted by non-religious people, particularly in European history.
No, they were persecuted by other religious groups.
When it spilled over into the New World,
they weren't atheists persecuting religions. They were religious people because those religious groups didn't agree with their religious ideas.
Well, at first they were a religious minority, and they were almost exterminated by every major power that's ever taken over the world, trying to exterminate either Jews or Christians. And I mean, when you look at it, it hasn't. It has that right there's a good point. I'm not Jewish, but you look at every organized group, even in modern times, here in the 40s, they've tried to eliminate. They've tried to eliminate Jews. How do you explain the fact that they've still held on for over 4,000 years? God made a covenant with the Jews saying that they would not perish from this earth. And despite all the best attempts by secular people and people that believe in the absence of God, or in the Nazi case.
People.
Ask the guy if there is still illiteracy in the world.
Is there still illiteracy in the world?
Well, of course there's still. What does that have to do with religion?
To wipe out illiteracy.
But despite the thousands of years and the great effort that the United States has put in our educational system, just look at the illiteracy that we have here in the United States.
Okay, so because people can't read, there's no God. I don't see how you
the analogy that you were trying to make, on the Jews and why the Jews are still here. The same analogy can be used on education.
Well, we didn't send 6 million illiterates to the ovens, or the Germans didn't send 6 million illiterates to the ovens.
And there's quite a few people that would actually disagree with that figure of 6 million.
They never fed illiterate people to the lions, and they never.
Most people couldn't read back then anyway.
Well, I do appreciate you calling, but I do have a bunch of other callers.
No, I appreciate it. Take care.
And you have a great day. And
you too.
Please call in again.
We have a lot of religious cultures who have died out.
Yeah, we are here every Sunday, 9 a.m., Channel 16. We're here from 9 a.m. to 10:30, and we love hearing from you. And it always happens, the last 20 minutes, the call's back up here. Let's go on down to Don.
Hey, how's it going?
I thought I had Don.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, who am I speaking to?
Oh, it's Don.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I got a question for you. And I'm going to hang up, to let you get to your next caller.
I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just kind of curious, which I was watching the show and stuff. And I've seen you talking about religion, Christianity, so forth, persecution of the Christians. And, you said the Christians are persecuting or something like that.
Right.
But I have a question.
Sure.
Satanism. I've never heard y'all speak about Satanism.
Because we don't believe in the devil either. And
but why are you bashing Christians and God, but yet?
Well, because I don't have in Satan we trust sitting in my dollar bills facing me every day. I don't have Satan is sitting on the corner there, sticking their Satan Bible in my face, saying I'm going to heaven or whatever else if I don't change my ways.
Exactly, because we Satanists don't get in people's face like Christians do.
Okay. Still, if you don't believe in one, you've got to totally disbelieve in the other. But what about your bumper sticker?
Which bumper sticker?
Or little sign you say Jesus is Lord. What?
That there is I feel a humorous bumper sticker. It means just as much as Jesus is Lord. It's a nonsensical statement. If Jesus did not exist, you might as well say Santa is Lord.
Well, I better defend that because that's my favorite.
It's David's favorite bumper sticker.
That's my favorite bumper sticker, and I have Jim put it on every time when he's on the control board.
Like I'm saying, I see y'all sit there and bash the Trinity.
Well, the reason
I see nothing about Satanist bashing.
Okay, let me explain that sticker first. The reason we put that on there is to shock Christians into thinking about what they hear constantly every Sunday, that Jesus is their Lord and Savior. If they see a statement that is so contrary to what they believe, maybe they will be shocked into thinking about what they are told that they believe. It's not so much an insult as it is a spur to start thinking about what they think they believe.
Well,
now, the business about why don't we attack Satanists, we could attack all kinds of religion. Personally, I don't like to go around attacking religions. I would rather develop a positive atheism, but unfortunately, this country is loaded with Christians, and they're very offensive and restrictive as far as atheists are concerned, and so we want to let them know that we are here and that there's a line there that they better not cross.
Okay, well, hey, you guys, y'all have a good morning. We'll catch you later.
Okay.
All right. You have a great day.
As you can see, many think that educating them about their own religion is considered attacking it.
Thank you, Arlo. Yes,
yeah, that's the point.
We're trying to educate the fallacy. Good point. Let's go on down to Nathan.
Hi.
Good morning.
I'm a first-time watcher.
Thank you.
I was watching this morning, and y'all were mentioning the atrocities that are committed in different religious names.
Yeah.
Correct.
You pointed out the killing of abortion doctors.
Actually, one of the callers did. That's all right.
Exorcising demons and molesting small children.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And I can't help but agree, but there are several people who have committed atrocities in Christianity, Muslim, Hindu. Every religion has a ton of people that commit these acts.
True.
And one thing that I just wanted to point out, this goes for all religions, is that it's one thing to attack the people, or even claim those people, but you can't necessarily blame that on the institution itself.
Why not?
I can be claiming to do things in your name that I am just acting on what someone has told me, and you really can't blame the institution for that.
I think you can, because the teachings of many institutions cause you to give up your own rational mind, not to depend on your own mind, but to depend on...
No, they don't cause you to give up your mind. You choose to give up your mind.
Well, they have...
Exactly.
They can persuade you.
If you give up that control and you just
right.
do what you think you're being told to, but you have to understand that a lot of these religions don't advocate the things that people are doing.
No, they don't advocate those things. What they do is tell you to depend on an earthly authority, some prophet, some priest, some head of the church. This person is supposed to make your moral judgments and to tell you what is right and what is wrong. And so you have people being told that abortion is wrong, and then the person out here who hears that says, that must mean I better kill that abortionist in my neighborhood. Well, the teacher, the head of that church did not
accountability for that action.
Right, and that person is accountable for his own action, but he is acting on what he believes, how he interprets what is said by the head of his church. And the difficulty with authority figures in churches is you're supposed to allow the judgment of a prophet or a pope to override your own personal judgment, and that's wrong. That's why religions are a danger.
Peer pressure.
Okay, I do agree that if you let someone tell you what is right and wrong, you're giving up some personal accountability there.
Okay.
But you're still giving the person total accountability for that action.
Yeah, and
that's where it needs to stay. It really does.
Right.
I agree that they're
you're responsible for your actions, and the consequences of those actions belong to you and only you. You're absolutely right about that.
If someone tells me that gun control is wrong, then I can't go shooting people that created the Brady Bill.
Can I be heard from back here?
I don't think so. You might want to jump on the microphone or go back in there. One of our members here, Jeff D, has a point there. He's going to.
Well, he's on his way there. I just wanted to mention.
Go ahead, Arlo.
I just wanted to mention that faith and dogma is a major tool for collective atrocities. I mean, anyone can go out, one single person, and go out and do something in the name of, say, atheism to try to show atheists can do wrong, but nothing collective I've ever heard of. Anyway,
that's group behavior is a psychological problem with human beings. I mean, look at the entire Nazi party.
Excuse me, if I can cut in here for a second.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, the day that I see Christians going out and acting as bodyguards for abortion doctors, the day I see them lining up and helping people attempting to go into legal abortion clinics, helping them get past the screaming protesters, the day that I see Christians putting it on the line against these behaviors that you say that are not representative of Christianity in general, then I'll think you have a point.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm still going to leave it at this, that you're putting, religion is an institution, people are causing these problems, it's a personal act.
So we should wipe out people.
There's personal accountability there, not accountability by the institution.
All right. That's an excellent point, and you have a great day.
There is no religion without the people.
I don't know if it's our correct point, but we all have our own point of view there. I'm sorry. Let's go on. Let's try to get as many callers as we can.
Sure.
Chris?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, I just got one question, and I want the girl to answer this. You guys have been talking a lot. I would like her to answer this question.
Her name's Audrey.
Audrey. Hi, Audrey. All right, you guys are on TV saying that, people who go to church are pretty much brainwashed, or since being children, you guys are brainwashed with this God. Well, what makes what you guys are doing correct or not brainwashing? I mean, you guys are on TV saying that there is no God, and going back to one of you guys' other callers, he was saying you guys don't ever talk about Satan. It's always about God.
Well, I haven't answered, but you did direct it towards you.
What's your point? Or what's your philosophy on this? Or what do you believe?
Mine personally?
Personally. Why are you up there?
Well, in part I'm up here because they said they never get any Satanists on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And my beliefs are complicated to explain even to myself. I don't believe in Satan as the biblical character, but as the biblical character is described, I think that best describes the personality, if you will, of the higher being that I know of.
Okay.
Therefore, he's not a God because he's not loving, he's not caring, he doesn't take care of anybody, he probably doesn't even know I exist or any of us. But he's still there.
But, so you also do believe that Satan was cast down from heaven, right?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't believe in that kind of... I don't believe in the Christian Satan.
So what's the difference?
There's a huge
difference. Satan is Satan. And we all, every human being has heard of God, and every human being has heard of Satan. And we all know where Satan came from. So why do you guys believe that Satan exists?
Wait a minute. That's her personal belief. Do not put Atheist Community of Austin anywhere near Satanists.
Right, but that's y'all's whole argument, though, is personal beliefs. I mean, you guys don't have proof that there is no God, and we don't have proof that there is a God, but we have to believe.
But go back to your original question. The difference between what we're doing and what, quote, the Christians are doing or whatever else, we're not telling you we have the answer, we have the only answer, and if you don't go our way, you're going to hell or whatever else. We are presenting the facts in a useful, interesting way.
And you can make your own judgment.
And we're leaving that judgment and those decisions up to you. We feel that the facts speak for themselves.
Right.
And we're down, and we're running out of time.
No problem. No problem.
I appreciate your call.
You guys, someone's answered the question. You guys have a good day, and God bless you.
And Santa bless you too, or whatever. Go ahead, Arlo.
Which God would that be?
Oh, I thought Arlo was going to say.
Oh, well, I was going to mention the Satanists that he was thinking of are just as much Christians as he is.
Right, there's Christian Satanists and then there's Satanists.
All right.
Well, the idea is Satan comes from an old shaitan, which is a Persian word. I mean, it just means the forces of darkness.
I mean, I know the roots of Satanism came out of Christianity. That's true.
Is that our Michelle? If it is, I'd like to get her on instead of this other guy.
Well, go at him quickly.
Well, let's go with Michelle. Michelle.
It is your Michelle.
Thank you.
Hi, Michelle.
I'd much rather have you on the show. Okay.
No, it's your atheist mom. Yeah.
Yes, one of our atheist moms.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there later.
Okay.
So.
Okay, go ahead. It looks like you're gonna be our last caller.
Okay. Well, I was just like the guy that was calling before about how all these people in the world are religious, so it must be right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And it's just like, okay, people are afraid of dying. They're afraid of, like Audrey was saying, about going into nothingness. So it fills that void. And if you prefer to not really think it out and to fill the void and take care of the fear by believing in religion, fine. If that helps you get through life, great. Just don't try to kill me for it.
Excellent point.
Good enough.
And that's pretty. And also the thing about, I think, what's more moral? A person who does the right thing because they trust their instincts, they know how they should be, or someone who does something right because if they don't, they're going to burn somewhere for eternity.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it really annoys me when people think of atheists as non-moral people.
Thank you.
And that's pretty much all I wanted to say, and I look forward to seeing you guys later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It gives me a chance to remind everyone we're going to Furs at North Cross Mall. Our panel discussion this afternoon, well, this morning, it starts at 11, will be atheist parents and raising atheist kids. And we have 4 intelligent gentlemen. Is it 5, maybe? 5 intelligent.
4 intelligent, 1 otherwise.
One we're not sure about. I'm not going to mention any names. No. And I will be your moderator. And they'll go through a discussion and give their points, whatever, and we'll be taking questions from the group and the audience there. If you feel that we can't raise more respectable kids without your so-called morals of your Bible or whatever else, come on down and ask your questions, and we'll try to get around to answering them all. Any other final points in this last minute here, Audrey?
I can't really think of anything. My mom always told me that there was no way I could be moral without having a religion. And I guess it's sort of true, because I'm not so down on people dying, but I would never harm a cat.
You would never harm a cat?
Never. No matter what, ever.
Worship the cat goddess. Okay.
Good luck, Joe Zamecki. Yes, we do miss you. Yes, that was nice. Yes.
Okay.
And we're going out with the credits here. Our wonderful crew comes out here every week, helps me out quite a bit. I appreciate each and every one of you.
I love all of you.
Yes. I love Austin. I love all the atheists in Austin.
Just want to give you all a big hug.